Welcome, everybody. Think we're good. Jason, maybe we can get started.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Excited
cool.
to get her going.
All right. Well, first of all, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I hope that this is a very insightful discussion between two people, me and Jason Plett, people who really care a lot about where this profession is headed. Today's session is going to be hosted by Alternative Payments and Financial Sense. So thank you guys so much for bringing us all together. My name's Dyanna Salcedo, and I'm the CEO of the CFO Project. I've spent nearly 2 decades in and around finance. I started as an analyst on Wall Street. I moved into leadership positions at growth stage startups, and I even started my own CFO advisory practice. And today I get to do one of my favorite things, which is to dig into a real story from someone who actually lives this every day. I've been a little bit removed from the CFO role, so I'm really excited about that. Um, Really quickly, just a quick word on the CFO project as the host of the hosting Jason here, so you know where we're coming from. We help accountants and bookkeepers and other financial professionals add a CFO advisory service to their practice. So exactly what Jason is going to be talking about, what he does every single day, so that these accountants and bookkeepers can earn more, build recurring revenue, and have a bigger impact on the businesses that they serve. Um, and we have a very singular mission here, which is to eradicate small business failure, one trained CFO at a time. And that mission is exactly why a conversation like this matters to me. There are 36 million small businesses in this country, and half of them will not survive to their fifth birthday. And so much of that just comes down to financial leadership or the lack of it. And accounting professionals are in the best position possible to change that. But here's the catch, and that's what this is really all about. It's really hard to give your clients that kind of leadership when your own firm is running into the ground or running you as the owner into the ground. And so that's our topic. What happens when a firm decides that growing doesn't have to mean more chaos or more hours or more of everything running through the owner? And we're calling this gain control back. The idea that we keep returning to is simple, that freedom is built intentionally for you, for your firm, and for your clients. It's not just going to appear once you hit like some certain revenue number or headcount. You have to build it. With that, I'm very excited to speak with Jason Plett. He is the CFO of FlexKeeper, and he has lived this journey. Jason, please, would love to start with you just introducing yourself and telling everyone a little about you and FlexKeeper.
Thanks, Diana. I appreciate the intro. Um, I am the CFO of FlexKeeper, which is a small boutique accounting company located in Boynton Beach, Florida. So we are home to 365 nice days of weather a year. So it sometimes makes it a little hard to sit at my desk and do accounting stuff. Uh, FlexKeeper started approximately 14 years ago with my wife's vision. She It really started as an executive admin business, and as through her journey, she found out that most of her small business owners, where their main needs were really accounting, and not necessarily executive admin services. So the strategy of the company shift to accounting, which is what we predominantly do today. And I myself joined the FlexKeeper about 3 years ago as the CFO. And I had a small tax business that I was running on the side, and we decided to consolidate that under the FlexKeeper umbrella. And basically, that's where we're at today. Running a small accounting business that was basically started from my wife's dreams.
Okay, awesome. And I'm seeing in the chat here that we have Daisy loves to go to Boynton Beach all the time. So, welcome. And guys, if y'all have questions, please let's keep this as interactive as we can on a Zoom call. Just drop them in the chat. There are moderators from all of our hosts on in the chat who can help either answer questions or even alert us if there's something we could be talking about in real time. And so with that, actually, I think we'll go to our first poll question. And so I want to get a sense of who's in the room. And so there we go. If we can kick that off. How many people currently work in your firm? So is it just you? Are you a solo practitioner? Do you have a small team of 2 to 4? Um, Maybe a larger team of 5 to 10, 10 to 20, or even more than 20 people. So we'll give you guys just a couple of seconds longer here to answer that question. And whenever our gracious hosts of this poll are ready to close that, we could take a look at those results. All right, thank you. Maybe we won't get the results, so let's continue the conversation. Jason, so we're going to be talking a lot about freedom today inside of our firms. So wondering, what does that word actually mean to you?
For us, when you start a small business, it's really a time commitment. Nobody really tells you how much time and energy that you're going to expend into, starting a business, keeping your client happy, and the whole thing that come with owning that. So, for us, it was more just about, hey, we're working long hours, we're investing a lot of time into the business, we're getting sucked in multiple different directions, and what can we do to basically streamline our time, make sure that we're still servicing our clients, giving them value, and also not being like the decision maker for everything that happens in the business. And that's actually the hardest part about it, because your clients get used to just dealing with you, right? They want to
Mm,
talk to you. And as you layer in more staff or assistants and stuff like that, your clients, they still have your cell phone. They're still, calling you at nights and weekends. And especially, for my own tax business, it was really a nights and weekends operation for me. I did have a 9 to 5, CFO job. And so, I had inadvertently trained my clients that nights and weekends was the time that they could, reach out to me and talk to me. And so, really the freedom came with, hey, I want my nights and weekends back. I'm
hmm
working now in the FlexKeeper 9 to 5. So I need to retrain my clients and have them, deal with me during regular business hours. So that was kind of the shift in strategy of our company. And, we really needed to retrain all our clients. But we also realized that as we were growing, we needed clients that weren't as demanding on our time, and that we had a lot of small business clients that really didn't fit the growth model of the business. And
hmm
so that was another thing. It was just streamlining our client base, uh, recalibrating the time control, and not being the person that everybody needed to go to get a decision.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that freedom for you and your team at FlexKeeper, but specifically you, and I think you even have you were getting some insights or some advice from your wife, if I remember the story correctly. But it was all about the freedom for you was time freedom, getting some of your time back, and also not being the only person who your clients feel that they can get good advice from or good responses from. Is that right?
Absolutely. Well, what we found immediately, that my wife Jody, who started the business, ended up being the bottleneck in a lot of these things. She was still doing a lot
Wow.
of client work. She was still making every decision that needed to be made. She was intimately involved in everything that all of our team was doing, and that just
hmm
created a very hard working environment. for everybody involved because she was, it was almost like we had to download her brain
Mm,
someplace so that we could continue the growth of the company. Um, and it was even retraining her mindset that the company was going to continue, with or without her historical knowledge. So it was really just setting goals to achieve that.
yeah. Yeah. Alan in the chat says micromanagement at its best. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. At the CFO project, I think something that what you're describing is something that we see constantly. We see, we have over 500 CFOs who are active in our community and they have clients, 10, 20, 30, 40 clients, depending on the types of services they offer. And absolutely, they're trying to help these clients and they understand that the owner becomes the decision maker, the quality control department, the escalation point, that they're the salesperson, they're doing all of these things. And so there's a real paradox. And actually, frankly, even our CFOs, they sometimes our sole proprietor CFOs are also facing that kind of paradox where they start losing control because they're trying to control everything. And I will even say in advisory, as I was just alluding to, you can build the exact same trap, right? If every client depends on you entirely as the advisor, maybe you've offloaded the tax or the bookkeeping, but the same thing can happen in the advisory space. So Jason, you recognize this. You and your wife, it's too owner dependent. Y'all are the bottlenecks. Where did you go looking for answers?
So here's the thing. I was a former CFO of a MSP slash IT company.
Hmm.
And the first thing that you find out when you get into that space is that they're all about peer groups. They
Mm,
love their peer groups. Monthly, quarterly meetings in your peer group, comparing your financials, looking at your numbers. That's where the MSP IT space is at. And I thought to myself, why shouldn't the accounting space be like that? We
yeah.
need to have the same thing. We need to be able to be coached by our peers. And so the thing that we did is I went looking in the space and said, okay, who are the best, accounting peer groups out there? And we settled on Woodard, and we joined Woodard, which is one of the largest accounting peer groups in the country. And that was the first step in the development. From there, we realized we had some pretty big gaps in the things that we were lacking in the company in order for us to be able to scale. And we also realized, the first thing you realize about being in a peer group is that, my problems aren't my own problems. My problems are very similar to all of the accounting firms in the space at our size. So
Hmm.
we were obviously able to, at that point, go to other firm owners that were, around the same size that we were. And we were like, what are you guys doing to combat this? What are you guys doing when this comes up? How are you guys pricing your clients? And all of those conversations that come around building a successful firm, we are now able to ask our peers. And it quickly emerged that we needed a practice management software.
Hmm.
We were just doing things incredibly inefficient. We needed, we needed, we needed better payment processing. We needed better solutions for tax workflows. I
Hmm.
mean, the list was probably, a dozen things long,
Yeah.
after our first quarter of, meeting in the Woodard environment.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. This is a great segue into our second poll question. We would love to hear from you all in the audience here. What's the biggest bottleneck holding your firm back from more freedom right now? Is it manual workflows and lack of visibility? So Jason just spoke to his own workflow challenges. Collecting payments and managing AR, Is it team capacity and bottlenecks tied to you as the owner, which we've just talked about a little bit as well, or is it uh, moving from compliance to advisory work, making that shift? So we'll leave that up for a few moments. And
Yeah, I
in the
love
meantime, oh, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I love that last choice because I think every accounting company they want to, you know, supersize their offerings,
Yeah,
and
I like that.
move from debits and credits to
Mhm.
actually caring about what that financial output is.
Absolutely. And exactly. It is a hot topic right now. How do we make this shift? But before we get into that, we will be talking a little bit about making that shift in a little bit. Um, so Jason, you just talked about how you had recognized these bottleneck challenges. You started learning from other firms in your new peer group, and building a solid foundation with the right tools became part of your solution. You alluded to a couple of specific systems you needed help with. So um, before you put real practice management systems into place, can you just paint a picture? What did that look like before the before state?
So let me talk about really the tax section of the business because that's
Okay.
really where my expertise is in the company. Although, my workflow experience was similar to Jody, who runs the accounting side of the business. But basically, customer document collection. We use ProConnect online tax software. So we were
Hmm.
relying on their back end to collect documents from the clients. And, I don't know if anybody's had great experience with, having clients and trying to teach them new tech or get them to adopt technology. Um,
Goodness.
let me just say that the adoption of those tax collection processes was probably about 25% across our clients. So the other
Mm,
75% were either dropping their stuff off to me or they were sending it to my email. So now I have all these documents scattered in my email. I have, folders on my desk. Um, and and then I also have to say that, I did get a little technology smart, and I discovered like an electronic notebook. So I basically had a list of clients in my electronic notebook, as their information came in, I was just writing them on this list. Like, okay, here's the list of my clients and the tax returns that need done. And
hmm.
then supposedly with this electronic notebook, would be able to easily search where I had made notes in that. Um, that didn't happen. So it was basically a mess, and
Yeah.
clients were getting lost in the shuffle. I would get client emails, "Where's my tax return at?" And I would be like, "Oh, I don't remember getting your information." I'd go back
Mm.
into my email and find, my 150 emails and find their tax documents, and it was like, wow, there's got to be a better solution to
Totally.
this than my handwritten technology notes. And also, how can I stop my clients from, giving me a folder of their paperwork, and then, having to switch from, oh yeah, that client, remember, oh yeah, that client actually dropped off their paperwork. They didn't send it to me in email or upload it to the software. So as you can imagine, um, it was a little chaotic. Uh,
Hmm.
so to speak. And I don't know if you've ever tried to run a project with 300 clients on a piece of paper. Um, but needless to say, that process wasn't scalable.
Yeah.
And it certainly wasn't going to continue to be the right solution.
Okay. You mentioned about 300 clients. And by the way, I don't have experience trying to run 300 clients through a piece of paper personally, but my mother She's always been a small tax preparer and bookkeeping firm. She has two employees, and so they still do a lot of what you're describing. So I feel your pain. But so about you had about 300 clients. Can you actually talk a little bit around how long you were able, like how large could your business get under this old system, and then we can kind of start to talk about you making the shift and how that's been able to unlock some of the business for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I joined FlexKeeper, we were probably about a mix of 8 employees and contractors. Some were part-time, some were full-time. Um, and uh, it was really kind of sitting down with Jody and deciding like, what do we want the business to be when it grows up? Do we want this business to stay at 300 clients? Um, do we want to scale? Uh,
Hmm.
do we have revenue goals? We really had a lot of soul searching around that. Um,
Hmm.
and, I kind of put my CFO hat on. And it was like, we we decided we wanted to scale. We decided we wanted to grow the business. And from that point, we decided what we were doing certainly wasn't going to work to meet
Okay.
those two goals. And so we made a strategic decision that we were going to improve those processes. Um, I can happily say that today we employ a mix of contractors and employees still, but our head count's around 18 people. Uh,
Fantastic.
when when I joined the tax business with FlexKeeper, we were doing about $450,000 in revenue. This year, we're going to close out around 1.5 million. Um,
Amazing.
and we can credit that all to a realizing that the uh, the handwritten notes weren't going to get us there, and B, that we needed to really decide that if that's what we wanted to do, we needed to overhaul everything that we were doing within the business.
Hmm. Okay. Um, okay, awesome. Let's actually go ahead and go into the third poll real quick. And then we'll start talking a little bit about some of the solutions. But so for our audience, how does your team currently manage workflow and task tracking across client work? All right, so are you all using software? Are you using spreadsheets or manual tracking? Think about the piece of paper that Jason was just talking about. Who here has that piece of paper? Do you have email and calendar reminders, or do you have no real consistent system and you're just kind of figuring it out as you go along? No shame, y'all. No shame. Um, Daisy in the chat says that she's pretty ready for an assistant. She's got a lot of bottleneck issues related to what you're talking about. Um, All right. So yeah, Jason, just wondering if you could talk a little bit about what solutions you were able to put into place. I know you've done some workflow solutions, but also you had some challenges getting paid. So yeah, maybe we can touch on both of those challenges.
Yeah, the first thing we did is we identified the need for practice management software,
Hmm.
and we attended Scaling New Heights, which is Woodard's big accounting conference, and there we discovered financial sets. Um, we were very, very impressed with the owners, very approachable. We could have decided to go with another platform, but we really wanted a platform that felt that was more relationship driven than it was wanting to sell us a big ticket item. And so we decided on Financial Sense and immediately put our workflows in there and saw, probably 100% increase in our productivity.
Wow.
Um, then our second, the second, item on the wish list, if we can call it that, was we needed to streamline the payment process. I would get done after tax season, and I'd have a long list of receivables of clients that I'd be texting or calling, or have my assistant call and be like, hey, I did your tax return. Why didn't you pay me? And I think like most tax, if there, if there's tax accountants in here that do taxes, like the last thing that you're thinking about during tax season is getting your clients to pay you money. So we needed kind of another option for that. And the interesting thing about discovering alt payments was I was as I mentioned, I was a CFO of an IT company, and I was still working in the space with some clients of ours. And one of our partners reached out to me and said, I really need you to take this meeting with Alt Payments because they have a good payment solution that you can recommend to your clients. Uh,
Mhm.
I took the meeting out of obligation to my friend, and I thought, I'm just going to take this meeting. I really don't have time to do it, but I'm going to take this meeting just to kind of placate him and, hey, I did you a favor. And I got into this meeting with All Payments, and I was absolutely blown away by it. And
Mhm.
I thought to myself, like, why would I recommend this to my clients? I should use this myself.
Yeah.
One of our issues was our clients wanted to pay us by credit card.
Mm.
Our fees were probably at the time were about 15,000 a year in paying credit card fees, and we would have to manually
Gosh.
go in and adjust the QuickBooks invoice if we wanted to pass the fee to the client, which was a lot of work to get 2.5, 3% of our billings. And Alt Payments had a little button that you just clicked, and instead of me having to have an awkward conversation with the client about adding fees, it was immediately right in there. And then, of course, instead of paying my assistant to send vaguely threatening emails about paying me, um, Alt Payments just made that an automated thing where I can escalate, my collection efforts. And, I start out with hey, this must have, been an oversight of yours to pay me tomorrow or you don't get service. So all of those kind of awkward conversations got cut out by implementing those two things, because through Financial Sense, we can send requests to our clients, we can send emails, we can send chats, and they don't have to text me anymore. And then I also, through Alt Payments, I can send, hey, pay me or find another accounting firm. And
Yeah.
I myself, as the owner, don't have to have those conversations, nor do I have to delegate that to my staff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So it sounds like Financial Sense helped you. I mean, it sounds like they helped you double your productivity, which is incredible. And alternative payments is going to help you keep that cash moving as a CFO, no doubt. At the CFO Project, our North Star that we help our accounting and bookkeeping members focus on with their clients is cash flow. Okay. It is the number one thing that is plaguing small businesses in America. So keep it simple. Let's get the cash flow flowing through the business. Um, all right, so let's talk a little bit about moving into advisory. So you've done a lot of the operational work. You've grown your team to, I think you said 18. You've created more visibility and improved how everything moves through the firm. You're getting paid faster. That's created capacity, presumably. So now my question to you and to all of these accounting and bookkeeping firms out there that are implementing solutions like this in order to create capacity, what are you going to do with that capacity?
Well, obviously, the goal was to take the time that I had got back and provide a higher level service to my clients. I wanted to go into an advisory role and use my experience as a CFO and, help my clients grow their business and be, proactive versus reactive. I know as accountants, we get a bad rap because we're always like putting out fires versus
Mm,
avoiding the cause of the fire.
mm,
Um, so that was definitely the shift of our company. And, transparently, we didn't get a lot of adoption in that. We
Mm,
were trying to sell higher level services, and at the price points that we were looking at, we just struggled to implement that, and we're still struggling with that today. Um, and it's almost like, how do we position this new thing that we're selling
mm-hmm,
um, in the space and get our clients to want to buy it, or getting the right clients that
mm-hmm,
already know why they need this. And so, historically, we're small business, um, a lot of lifestyle business, a lot of sole proprietor owners,
mm-hmm.
operators, not guys that really wanted the advice, or they wanted the advice but they couldn't afford or didn't see the value in paying for it.
Yeah. 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 So it sounds like, okay. Yeah. So it's hard. It's hard. I mean, I think you have to figure out how to define your service. Like you mentioned, you got to find the right clients. How do you price it? Et cetera. So before we dig into answering some of those questions, let's launch the fourth poll. And let's see where you guys are in offering advisory. So, do you currently offer advisory services to your clients? For some of you, hopefully, it's already a core part of your service. For others, maybe you're offering some, but it's inconsistent. Maybe for some of you, you're just exploring, and others are just staying focused on compliance work. So, yeah, we can let that stay up for a few moments, and we can move now into where Jason is. A lot of firms find themselves. They know their clients need more. They know that they're capable of more, but there's a big difference between doing occasional advice and having a defined service. And so, Jason, I think that's really the next question for FlexKeeper.
I I,
Um,
I agree 100%, Diana. And one of the reasons why I was so excited to be invited to have this conversation with you is I'm very, very interested to hear about the CFO project. Um, I I've spent numerous years as a CFO, but somehow that hasn't translated into me being able to monetize my experience and my knowledge. So I'm really interested to hear from you, like how are you advising firms like myself, who've kind of figured out that we need a shift. We did the shift in strategy. We put the right tools in place to help us become
mhm.
more productive. But how do we launch that next tier of services?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and literally, this is how I spend every day is talking to firm owners like yourself about how to turn something as broad as advisory into a service that will stick. There's all kinds of reasons why it doesn't stick, and I think the one of the first things that we have to do is really define the service. So there's a million different ways that you could do advisory. You could do tax advisory, you could do assurance, you could do M&A, you could do exit planning. Or like at the CFO project, we help folks step into a CFO advisory role. So first and foremost, let's define it because plenty of people, I think, are just struggling to figure out what it means to be an advisor. And even then, when we use the words CFO advisor, what does that actually mean? Because there's a lot of ways that you could be a CFO. Jason, you've been the CFO of an MSP and IT company, and now you're the CFO of FlexKeeper. Like there's there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different services or a lot of different analyses that we can do as CFOs. I was a CFO to growth stage consumer brands that were venture backed startups, and so that had its own set of bespoke requirements. But in order for this to work at a couple of things, we define CFO advisory as a CFO advisor is somebody that a business owner trusts to guide them towards success. That's it. So I mentioned earlier, 36 million small businesses in the US, half of whom will fail. before they turn 5. And so they cannot, and we're talking about businesses maybe doing between $500,000 in revenue up to $10 million in revenue. For these types of businesses, they often cannot afford a full service, high performing CFO, nor do they need one. The vast majority of what these types of businesses need is simply a better understanding of how cash moves through the business so that they can have more of it and be successful and survive that fifth birthday. So define the service. And again, I'm just using the example of how we define CFO advisory. We are going to help business owners succeed by helping them generate sustainable, positive cash flow. So you want to define who you serve, the problems you solve. Again, there's a million advisory problems. We're going to focus on cash flow, the outcomes that you own, the conversations that you have every month. You really want to figure out a way that you can package this into something that is repeatable and scalable, because otherwise, as we talked about earlier, you might fall into the same trap where everything is in your head, it's owner dependent, the business is relying on you. And so I guess that, the next step, I think, is defining that service, finding a way to package it as something repeatable and scalable.
So I think you're talking about, finding a niche in the business. Like, what
Mm.
are you good at? So I might say, like, my niche is consulting MSPs because I've, done that before. But like, what's the best way to figure out, like, what's the best fit for FlexKeeper without losing opportunities? Because, we live in a society that has FOMO. And I think to myself, hey, maybe I should apply my MSP skills to this guy that's doing construction down the street.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that I do think, especially in the $500,000 to $5 million small business range, that I do think that actually for every business, the core cash flow drivers are the same. And every business can, so for example, there are only a handful of things that drive revenue. It's like go back to economics 101, P's and Q's, right? Price and quantity. And so every business has the same cash flow drivers. And so I say that because I know a lot of our accountants, our bookkeepers, our tax preparers serve a wide variety of clients, and I don't want them to feel that they can't offer this kind of service to those clients. Now all of that said, I do think that the niche helps you create something that's repeatable, makes it easier to diagnose problems with your client. It's going to make it easier for you to train staff, to price the service, to explain the value. I promise you, going into a conversation with a client that's in an industry that is going to just help you feel more confident, help you scope the challenges better so that you can price. And it's going to help you build that, what I mentioned earlier, that repeatable process where you're not trying to figure things out. So I don't think it's necessary to niche in that very small $500,000 to $5 million range. I do think the drivers apply to everyone, but niching is going to give you just, I think, allow you to build a repeatable, scalable practice sooner, and give you more confidence earlier.
I love that, Dyanna. But I'm now going to throw a little curveball at
Sure.
you and say, as accountants, we're kind of tired about hearing about AI.
Oh, yeah.
But how how do we, when we're sitting in front of our clients and they're like, yeah, I AI'd how I needed to do this, and AI is fault, it has some limitations. How do we have the confidence to be like, yes, that's a great tool, but you still need the human element to make sure that you're making the right decisions? And how do we avoid the I think the correct term is imposter syndrome, where we
Mm,
don't necessarily believe so much in our skills and being able to shepherd that, business owner to the right decisions.
yeah. Yeah. Imposter syndrome is probably the number one challenge that I help our members overcome every single day at the CFO Project. Um, and then you also asked about AI and finding confidence in light of these new tools. But first, on the imposter syndrome, um, we like to talk about something called the confidence competence loop. So you learn the CFO function, you come to the CFO project, we're going to give you a repeatable, scalable process that you can follow with your clients every single month. And
And this
you're
is a
going to
peer
be
group, right? And this is a
mm,
peer group type environment.
actually, the CFO project has a whole suite of resources. So you'll have on-demand training. You're going to actually learn the system. When I say a system, I literally mean a repeatable, scalable process that you can follow every single month with your clients. It's going to take you about 2 to 4 hours per month, and you are going to be able to charge a recurring retainer
Mm.
between $1,500 and $5,000 a month. Okay. And we're going to give you the on-demand training for that. We're going to give you a peer group. We talked a lot about peers earlier and how you used a peer group. We're going to give you a peer group that's going to help you stay accountable, that's going to help you with problem solving. And like you said, your problems you're not by yourself suffering. Everybody has, similar problems. Um, and we do live events, and there's the whole community in the forum. So that's what we do. And we tell our group in these we have mindset training. I've got executive coaches that lead every single one of these roundtables. And what we talk about is this confidence loop. And you're going to be scared and nervous at first, but the truth is that confidence comes from taking action. So you go out there and you put into practice what we teach you, or any other program that you go and learn a process from. You go out there and you put it into practice. When you put it into practice, you will learn something from that, and that will allow you to iterate and grow. That builds competence. And with more competence, that builds confidence, right? And then you take the next action and you continue to iterate, and you're going to build that confidence. In terms of another just one other thing on imposter syndrome before we go into AI, although I think this is related. We also like to remind our CFO advisors that you don't have to have all the answers. A lot of folks are afraid. I don't know how to provide advice. I don't know how to run a plumbing business or an MSP business or anything like that. But what we say is no, no, no. Your job is not to figure out the business solution. Your job is to illuminate what is sucking cash out of the business. And then you talk to your business owner. Hey, business owner, we need to get day sales outstanding. You had this problem, Jason. We need to bring this down from 65 to 35. And you need to focus on that intentionally for the next 30 days. Let's talk about how we can improve that. Your business owner knows, your client knows their business better than you do. They know their industry better than you do. They know their local market conditions better than you do. So don't feel like you need to have all the answers. Like that's another thing I like to remind folks who are stepping into the advisor hat. This is not, I'm an expert to all businesses. And then the last thing I'll just say on AI is AI is certainly not going to be able to take the role of an advisor. The thing that you have as the accountant or the tax preparer or the bookkeeper for your clients is you've got trust. Okay, so you already have the trust of your client. They are already coming to you with very sensitive information. I am sure that you've all sat across folks who have poured their heart and souls out to you, who have maybe cried about what they're going through, right? You have trust, you have context. So your AI tool is not going to know about your business clients' dreams and goals. They got to put their 2 kids through college. They want to work fewer Saturdays. They want to grow, but they don't know how. Um, you have access. You have access to more information. And of course, you can feed your AI information, but you got to be careful there too, because you've got a lot of security constraints. And I'll tell you what, even if you put all these three things together, and I use my AI tools a lot, even when you put all these things together and you get really nice, beautiful output from your AI, at the end of the day, you're still the one that has to have the conversation. So humans stay in the lead, and that's what your clients are paying for. They want someone to help them. They're not going to, if they wanted to go into an AI chat, but they could, good luck. But you've got all those other elements that make the advice a lot better than some generic AI output that's trained on the internet.
So tell me, we've already established that I can't clone myself. So how do I make sure that I'm not the guy that has to do all this work?
Yeah, you systematize it. You need to systematize it. So uh You need to absolutely define processes. I promise you, Jason, we could teach your team, the folks who are interested, in how to take the skills they already have in bookkeeping or tax, whatever it is they do. They have the technical chops to understand the financial statements. And all they need to do now is start taking a forward-looking view. I know easier said than done, but when you put everything into a repeatable process where they don't, you or them no, don't need to come up with a bespoke analysis every time you run, but you know the process that you're going to follow. I can walk you through, for example, we give our CFOs something called the one clear path. Or what does that mean? We can go over this real quick. First step, every time you onboard a new client and every single year, you're going to set goals with your client. And by the way, we're not going to jump into numbers and cents. We're going to talk about those life goals, 2 kids through college, working fewer Saturdays, opening a third location. Okay, now I understand what they're trying to achieve. Now we can translate that into a set of cash
Mm.
flow targets that we need to hit. You did that with your business. You said, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go from a revenue perspective? Because you were taking that CFO lens. From there, we help our CFOs will help their clients, or our CFOs will distill those cash flow targets into at the driver level. They'll set targets at the driver level. We've identified 12. There's only 12 cash flow drivers for every business. They may call it something differently. You might sell a widget and I sell a service, but every business has the same cash flow drivers. So we distill it and we set targets at the driver level. And then we look every single month, we look at where the business actually lands on days sales outstanding or on sales volume. And we score it visually. We actually give our CFOs a scorecard, visual, red, yellow, green, on track, at risk, or off track. And and then finally we prioritize. What is the one thing our business owner can focus on for the next 30 days that will help increase the bank account? That's all we do. And when I give that to you or your team, they're going to know exactly what to do, and your business owner is going to know exactly what to focus on. And not every idea is going to work, but over time, these gains are going to compound. And at the end of the year, when it comes time to renew that $2,500 retainer, they're going to do it because that bank account is growing. So you
Awesome.
got to have a
Awesome.
system. You got to have a system, Jason. That's the point. Something that is very easy to follow. I don't want you or your team to have to feel like you have to be the experts or the insight provider or do bespoke analysis. There are ways you can
Mm.
systematize this.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Um, so I think the clear message that we've or the conclusion that we've come to
Mm.
today is uh, A, you don't need to clone yourself. But B, uh, you really need to develop a process, right? Would you
Yeah,
agree with me there?
100%. Yeah. Kind of full circle back to how you even started creating capacity in the first place, right? We need to systematize, put in process. Absolutely. I think that's I think that's exactly right. Um,
I, and
so
I and I would
mhm.
guess that you would also say that it's not like that you have to do this in the order that FlexKeeper did it,
Mm,
but you just have to be very, like, oh, get a practice management, get a better, payment processor, and then, oh, you can go into advisory.
mhm.
I don't think we're saying that there's a one size fits all solution here, right?
No, I think that's right. I don't think there is a one size fits all, but I do think that there is some truth or some learnings that we have in your journey in that if you are already a bottleneck, and again, we had like Daisy who was like, I need an assistant. She's already there. If she wants to move into advisory, but she can't even get out of, her existing business model because of the bottleneck, then I think looking at Jason's example and knowing how he at least did some things, he took action to create capacity. I do think it's important to have a plan that will then allow you to start focusing your advisor on efforts. And it doesn't have to be software first or payments first or whatever. It's going to be whatever's right for your business. But capacity
Right.
creation, I think, is an important step. Um, So yeah, deliberately designing with, I think at the very beginning, we talked about how this is created intentionally. So, so
So
Jason, oh, go ahead, please. You
yeah,
first.
go ahead. No, 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 for sure.
So if there's, I'm just kind of going full circle again. If there's a firm owner who's listening, who's where you were just a few years ago, kind of everything's running through them, too many manual processes, wanting to grow but feeling stuck. I just, what would you tell them to get started? I kind of said you need to create capacity first. What do you think?
Well, I think the number one thing that you have to do is you have to sit down and have some self-reflection. A lot of business owners, their number one thing that they're thinking is that nobody on my team is going to do this better than me, so I should be the one that does it. So you have to let go of that thinking. You have to admit that if that's the way you think, you're always going to be the bottleneck, and you'll never be able to scale your business. You'll never be able to offer high level services because that just doesn't work. Okay. And some people think, well, I'm just going to work harder, right? I'm going to, put in 14 hours a day. But that that doesn't work either. If you're the guy doing it's really it falls back into your lap, and it doesn't matter. You could work 24 hours a day. It doesn't fix. It's not going to fix the problem. And then the second step is really what you're bringing to the table, what Woodard brought to the table for us, and that is talking with your peers. You're not alone. You and
Hmm.
I have the same challenges day to day. And then finally, building a system and a process. Um, that
Yeah.
is paramount, and make it repeatable. You can't build a system and a process for every single one of your clients that's different. It has to be, we do it this way. And by the way, client, you have to do it that way too. For example, if your team is skilled on QuickBooks Online, and you have a client that comes in and they want to use Xero, not that Xero is a worse accounting system or anything like that, but it really has to be to what your firm specializes in and what they do. Um, and then you know build a team that they know what they're accountable for. They see the workflow. They see what they need to achieve every day. And I don't need to micromanage them. I know there was a joke at the top, micromanagement at its best. I hate micromanagement from myself in my career, so I don't want to do that to my team. And there's also like, oh, well, I maybe only have 20 clients. I don't need to be concerned about this now. There's not one size fits all, right? It's, you got to do this now if you're not doing it already. And it's always better to do it when you're small, but even when you're in growth mode, you can, you can still make sure that you're ready to scale.
Yeah.
And then, developing a higher value product, which
Hmm.
which you're um, which you've touched on this conversation. And I think I talked about mind shift uh, a lot. And would you agree with me about like this, that we as accountants need to kind of have a mindset shift?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. It's hard, but we do because it's asking, if we want to go into advisory, it's asking us to start looking forward to looking at the financial statements and your clients' businesses a little bit differently, to get out of your comfort zone and know that you can be the person that you are the best person, by the way, for that
Mm.
business owner to turn to. Like I firmly believe in that, but you've got to step into that role confidently. Real quick, as we wrap up, let's go ahead and launch the last couple of polls here. So the next poll is if you would like more information about the CFO project. It's a very simple yes, no question. I'd be happy to have someone on my team reach out to you. If you are thinking about starting adding advisory services to your business, we'd love to chat. Um, And while you guys are answering that one, I just want to come back to something Jason said and reiterate the first step here is thinking about where you want your business to be,
Mhm.
thinking about your why. Um, and I just kind of want to remind everybody about that as you reflect here at the end. It's what we teach our CFOs to do with their clients, right? To understand their clients' goals and objectives. And actually, when you come in through the CFO project, we talk about your own goals and objectives too, because we want to make sure you are committed to making this change. And then the last poll is, would you like a personalized demo of financial sense and alternative payments? So just select the best response there. Maybe you want to see both of these software and payment solutions have helped Jason's business. So I say take a demo. But yeah, you guys select what kind of help you might need. Okay, so I think,
I just want to
please.
interject that I'm happy to report that I'm not working nights and weekends anymore.
That was gonna
And
be my last question to you is, tell me how free you really are, Jason. So that's great.
yeah, no, it's fantastic. We, it's definitely helped me, unplug on that Friday afternoon. When I close the laptop, I'm not thinking about what tax return I didn't finish, or what problem I forgot to answer for my clients. And Obviously, everybody has a different sense of what freedom is. But I definitely got my time back on my nights and weekends. So I'm grateful for that.
No, that's amazing. Well, awesome. Thank you. That was actually my last question for you. So, I think zooming back out, kind of coming full circle, the real idea we wanted you all to leave with today is that freedom isn't something that suddenly appears when you reach a certain revenue number or head count, but you build it. And that's exactly what Jason has done for himself and for his firm. You got to recognize that bottleneck, learn from the people who are solving the same problems, find a peer group, put the systems around what you're doing, create more predictable cash flow, and then decide what you're going to do with the capacity. By the way, you don't have to become a CFO advisor. Some of you might want to go down to the beach where Jason lives, so or spends time. So, all right. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone again for joining us. Reach out to any of us, I'm sure, and the hosts on this panel to if you do have any other further questions. And I wish everyone a fantastic Thursday afternoon. And thank you, Jason, for the
So,
great conversation. This was really fun.
yeah, thank you, Diana. I appreciate it, and I am very honored to have been selected to have a conversation with you today.
Yeah, same. Have a good one, y'all.